Welcome to Speak. We are inside the Dome here at Cosm LA in Inglewood.
Wood in the house, baby.
Beautiful, beautiful place. We're very excited to be here. Can you go give us 30, Paul?
I can do about 15.
15
what, push-ups?
Dude.
Welcome, guys. I'm Joy Taylor alongside Paul Pierce, Keyshawn Johnson, and the playmaker Michael Irvin. We are really excited to be here at Cosm LA here on Speak today, and excited to get started. But we do have some bad news to start the show with, unfortunately. After just one full season in Las Vegas, Antonio Pierce has been fired as the Raiders head coach, according to reports. So this was something that we were thinking was a possibility, but it is now confirmed that he is out as the Raiders head coach. Keyshawn, what is your instant reaction?
I mean, like you just said, Joy, it's something that we kind of heard the rumblings over the last couple of weeks that this could possibly come down at the end of the season. 4-13, I thought, look, first of all, he never had his quarterback. So when you look at it, he wanted to give up every draft pick that he could to go up and get Jaden Daniels. They didn't want to do it, left him basically with Gardner Minshew and whoever else. And this is the results of it at 4-13 and an early exit for him as the head coach. Now, what I would dive into, and I don't always want to make it about this, but this is now, from a front office standpoint and two head coaches, 3 African-Americans that have now been terminated, okay, after one season as a head coach in New England, one season with the Raiders as a full-time head coach, and 2 seasons as general manager in Tennessee have all been fired. Now let's see what the hiring cycle brings us now that these jobs are opening up. AP obviously will get another opportunity to be some sort of coach at some level, but he deserves another opportunity in the future to become a head coach again.
Michael, what's your reaction?
Why does he deserve that opportunity? Because we got to look at what I always talk about, the whole journey of how we got here. And when you look at the opportunity that AP has, when he received that job, it was total mess. Yes. Remember, that was the Josh McDaniels and all of that, and the team had basically said, we don't even want to play for this guy. AP held that thing together, and he deserved and earned that opportunity. But he picked up, like he said, a mess without a quarterback. And the issue is, I know the offense was bad, but his side of the ball, defense, they never really got clicked. They had some great moments. They had great moments. Remember beating Kansas City a couple years ago, beating Kansas City. That boy Max Crosby stood up for AP. This time around, Max just said he's going to stay out of that, and I kind of knew something was going to happen. I ran into Mark Davis at the Tyson fight with Jerry Jones, got a chance to talk to him, and we were talking about Antonio Pierce, and I kind of felt like, yeah, this may be a short run for Antonio Pierce. But I hope he gets another opportunity, not just to coach linebackers, but also be another head coach.
Yeah, they were tied for the 25th ranked scoring defense this year, and obviously their offensive numbers were really bad. But when you don't have a quarterback and they don't equip you with one, then that tends to be what the situation is, and you need more than 1 year to build everything up. But Paul, what's your reaction to Antonio Pierce being let go?
I mean, another Pierce fired. I don't know. I didn't see it coming. No, I didn't. I actually didn't see this coming, but it makes me think the more and more I think about it, that they have a plan B. They have something up their sleeve, and I don't want to speculate, but this could open up the door for maybe Deion and Shedeur. I mean, I said before the season ended, if the Raiders got the #1 pick, which they didn't, I believe they have the #6 pick now. Hey, I think the Raiders got something up their sleeve, but I definitely didn't see this coming. He didn't have, I mean, what kind of team did he have? What could he do with the Raiders? What could anybody do with the Raiders? So it makes me think they have something lined up for the future here in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen him get his quarterback, though. Just to see what he could do and get that opportunity. I would have loved.
In the National Football League.
Right.
No quarterback. Right. Nobody can.
Nobody can.
I mean, it's just the reality. You know it, I know it, Troy, you know it, Paul know it.
And we talk about it every day.
You can't win this way in the National Football League without a quarterback.
Sometimes you have a quarterback, and it's so hard. But certainly if you aren't going to win without a quarterback, your side of the ball has to be taken care of.
Exactly.
And you are right, Michael. He did come in and galvanize the team, and he had the backing of the top players in the building. Paul, also, I do think that you're onto something with the direction that the Raiders might be going in. Obviously, our colleague Tom Brady will have some thoughts on, what they should do at hiring the head coach. But they have the 6th pick overall. It's the Titans, Browns, Giants, Patriots, Jags, and Raiders. Obviously, this isn't a heavy quarterback draft, so there's a lot of different directions they could go in with building the team up to begin with. And there's some interesting names out there. Is there someone that you think would make sense for Las Vegas?
I would have to start, number one, by looking at Mike Vrabel because of what you just mentioned, our colleague and Tom Brady having his hands deeply into the organization now. That's probably a strong possibility. I mean, it really fits. The relationship is there. Vrabel knows how to coach. You're not bringing in a first-timer. That makes all the sense in the world. And obviously the Deion situation away from Colorado and bringing his son to coach him for the Raiders. Those are 2 names that I would be watching very, very closely. Then you also got Aaron Glenn, who's sitting out there in Detroit. That's going to be a hot commodity here in the next couple of weeks as head coaching. Other than that, I mean, Sexy Rexy's going, sounds like, back to the Jets possibly, so you can't go there. I don't know. Outside of that, I don't know.
Vrabel has really become the hottest coaching name right now.
Yeah. What's interesting, what Key was talking, all of those are defensive coaches, right? And they're going to come in with the same problem that Antonio Pierce has. Where's the quarterback? And those guys, as guys like Vrabel, he says, I want a great relationship with the GM, and I want a quarterback in place. So, he'll have his opportunity. So that's going to be interesting to see. It's all about the quarterback and with the Raiders.
Well, moving on to the Super Bowl and the Chiefs. The playoffs are here, and the defending champion Chiefs have the #1 seed in the AFC. But the Lions, on the NFC side, they're the betting favorites to win it all.
Oh, yeah.
Going for a 3-peat. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, not the favorites. Michael, is it crazy that the Chiefs are not Super Bowl favorites?
I ain't mean to be talking while you're doing your thing, but I told y'all this yesterday. I tried to tell you what all 5 of my eyes saw. The 2 of my head and the 3 of my name, they saw greatness with this Detroit Lion team. I said there is no way, and it's going to take so many different ways to ultimately beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And they give you that. You may have to stop Patrick Mahomes in the red zone, hold him to a field goal, then turn around and make a great drive. This team has shown over and over again they can do any one of those things, and it's going to be if they see Kansas City in the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody's going to go into Detroit and beat them prior to getting to the Super Bowl. I told you they're on that mission. They showed, I thought, when they played San Francisco, that no, even though we don't have to play, we're still going to play, and we're going to play at a high level and win. I don't see anybody beating them. I told you that yesterday, the odds makers, they watched us, and they said Michael was right, and they changed that thing, as they should.
You really believe that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No,
What should I not?
think they've been looking at Kansas City throughout the course of the season and how Kansas City's been barely getting out of these games and clunking along and kicking field goals or a missed field goal or a blocked field goal. It just hadn't been as smooth. Come playoff time, we'll see what both teams look like. Now that odds will change as we get deeper into the playoffs. As both keep winning, will Detroit be able to continue to score 30-plus points in the playoffs? Or the Kansas City Chiefs not going to be able to score 30 points in the playoffs in each game? So as you start to look at this, it'll change over time. And it's not crazy that Detroit is favored to win the Super Bowl. It's not crazy at all. But what I would say, Paul, is number 15 hadn't lost yet. So until he loses, Detroit's not favored in my eyes.
It's not crazy. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that Detroit, everybody, see, this is what everybody does. They become prisoners of the moment. They go by what they just saw just the other day. Because Kansas City been resting. They took care of their business. They only lost 1 game without Mahomes. But we look at this game with Detroit and how they dominated Minnesota. But to me, the last 2 games with Detroit versus the Niners and also Minnesota, they look vulnerable to me. And I'll tell you why. Purdy, he had his way with them. If he don't throw them 2 interceptions, they beat the Lions. And then you let Minnesota get 2 interceptions. They ended up in the red zone early 3 or 4 times that they didn't capitalize on. the Chiefs, they would have been up 21 points if that was the Chiefs playing the Detroit Lions and did the same things that Minnesota did. So we're talking about the two-time champs, 15-1 under Mahomes, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and they're not the favorite. This is absolutely ridiculous.
I think it's crazy. I guess the Lions have had more dominant wins.
Yes.
But the Chiefs have been consistent since week 1. And it's still Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I know we get very excited about something new, and the Lions aren't necessarily new. They were in the NFC Championship game last year. But when we're talking about winning the Super Bowl, because that's what the odds are, Super Bowl odds, not who's going to look the best throughout the playoffs, it's who's going to win the Super Bowl. Right now, if they were playing tomorrow on a neutral field, you're telling me that you're picking the Lions to beat the Chiefs?
No way.
Yeah.
New Orleans is next week. It's in a couple weeks, but New Orleans is next week, and you're picking...
Yeah. And the best chance they had went out the window when this Super Bowl was played in New Orleans. They're going to finish this thing in a dome. The Detroit Lions will play all the way in a dome. The best chance the Chiefs had was to get them outside. They won't see them outside. And yes, I'm with them. They're with me, I should say. I said it first. What do you mean? They're with me? Yeah, I said it first, and they jumped on. 2 days ago, it was the Chiefs. After I said it, that thing flipped because they said, you know, that dude know what he's talking about. And now we're talking about it again. But, yeah, that's exactly. Dude, I'm serious. Detroit looks unstoppable. In all of that we're talking about.
Michael?
You said there'll be 21 points up, Paul. Chiefs hadn't scored 21 points.
Did you see when Minnesota should have been up 2 touchdowns if they capitalized in the red zone?
Right, but the Chiefs haven't.
And if Purdy don't throw them 2 interceptions,
Minnesota has. So now you're saying when Kansas City Chiefs have been squeaking by everybody 21-20, 23-19.
They bored.
But they win the game. They win the game. Now, all of a sudden, they're going to be up 21 points on a Detroit Lion team that's been unstoppable.
But keep in mind, because, you know, we're kind of forgetting about the Chiefs, which we tend to do. You know, they're very boring. They win everything. It's so boring. They're actually a defensive team.
Right.
So if there's a matchup for, like, say this is the Super Bowl and they're playing each other right now. If there's a matchup for the Lions and that high-powered Lions offense that you call, what do you call it?
Efficiently explosive.
Efficiently explosive.
Efficiently explosive.
That Kansas City defense is a team that would match up well, I think, with that team.
Right. Or the other way, this offense is just an offense that's so efficiently explosive that defense will have all kinds of trouble.
And if Kansas City gets the lead, you know what they're good at? They're good at ball control. They hold time of possession.
Right.
If they get the lead, they're going to milk that clock and just wind the game, make it ugly.
And see, Detroit can end a 6-minute drive and take it in the game with the way they have, with the running game. And the best way to beat Kansas City is say, hey, get this ball out of Patrick Mahomes.
And they healthy. They got Worthy, Hollywood back.
The problem that Detroit going to face, though, is the NFC conference.
Well, okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Like, we are just putting the Chiefs and the Lions in the Super Bowl right now and, like, having a hypothetical Super Bowl conversation. But which one of them is going to get to the Super Bowl? I think the road to the NFC is much harder than for Kansas City.
It's way harder. It's so much harder because, number one, you're going to have to see Green Bay possibly, Minnesota possibly. Although you just wax Minnesota, but seeing a team a third time around is very, very difficult. Philadelphia, you're going to have to see. Now, Jalen Hurts may or may not play this week. If they can get past with that and then advance and then get to the NFC Championship game and you run into them on a collision course, that's going to be tough. Where now you're talking about the AFC. You look at Kansas City. Outside of that, you got a Pittsburgh team. I don't think anybody's worried about that. Baltimore, they beat early in the year, which I believe they can beat Baltimore again if they need to, but that's going to be a little bit of a tough fight. Buffalo beats them all the time in the regular season, but Buffalo has to go to Kansas City. They haven't beaten them in the postseason. And I'm not even putting the Chargers and Denver in that mix because I think they'll lose along the way. Houston will lose along the way. It's just a much easier path for Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl than it is Detroit.
My only concern with Detroit, and it will sound crazy, but I play the game not just shoulders down, also heads up. I believe I'm only concerned about the Minnesota game, the third time that you just talked about. It is hard to beat a
But you know they got Green Bay possibly the third time, too.
Yeah. But Green Bay isn't going to make it out of week 1 without Christian Watson.
You don't think they can beat the Rams?
No.
Okay.
They won't make it out of week 1 without
Subscribe here to get the latest from Speak, and go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.